Hi, welcome to today's lesson, Year 10. I hope you're all doing really well and keeping healthy and managing to keep cheerful at the moment. I've been missing you quite a lot, so I thought we'd do today's lesson via video link. We'll see how it goes. Let me know if you think it's successful so I know whether to do it again. And we're going to be discussing the poem In Paris with you that you guys read on Tuesday, and thank you for all your responses because it means I've got plenty to say about it today as part of this lesson. And I'll be trying to respond to all the comments that you made. Lots of them were really interesting, and to answer the questions that you asked about the poem as well. Talking about answering questions, obviously in the exam, you will have to answer a question in an unseen poem, and I will go through how to complete that task and the best way of getting a good grade on that task. But probably next Tuesday, depending how things go today for time. So we're going to focus mostly today on sort of collating some of your responses to the poem from Tuesday. So I'll start by reading the poem, and I think it is a poem that sort of benefits from being read out loud. So here we go. In Paris with you. Don't talk to me of love, I've had an earful, and I get tearful when I've downed a drink or two. And one of you talking wounded, I'm a hostage, I'm marooned, but I'm in Paris with you. Yes, I'm angry at the way I've been bamboozled. I'm resentful at the mess that I've been through. I admit I'm on the rebound, and I don't care where are we bound. I'm in Paris with you. Do you mind if we do not go to the Louvre? If we say sod off to sodding Notre Dame? If we skip the Champs-Élysées and remain here in this sleazy old hotel room, doing this and that, to what and whom, learning who you are, learning what I am. Don't talk to me of love, let's talk of Paris, this little bit of Paris in our view. There's that crack across the ceiling and the hotel walls are peeling, and I'm in Paris with you. Don't talk to me of love, let's talk of Paris. I'm in Paris with the slightest thing you do. I'm in Paris with your eyes, your mouth. I'm in Paris with all points south. Am I embarrassing you? I'm in Paris with you. So there's a poem, and I think one of the first things you do in the exam will be to try and think about the title, and obviously bringing in the idea of Paris brings in certain connotations to do with romance and love and glamour, and if we assume the characters are English, something exotic and out of the ordinary. So that gives us a starting point, and it's one of the things that lots of you picked up on in your responses to the poem. So here are a few things that people in the class said about Paris in the poem. Lots of people, as I said before, talked about the symbol of Paris representing love and romance. But a couple of people picked up on how that's actually juxtaposed by some of the actual content of the poem, which touches on things like heartache, or can be read as a rejection of romance. One really interesting idea that one student responded with was this idea of Paris as a place of refuge or sanctuary from the pain of love, almost like the voice of the poem was escaping into this idea of Paris. But there's a problem then with that escape because reality will break in. You've got that line, the crack across the ceiling, which this student picked up on, and other details of the hotel room, which suggest a more real version, which fits with actually the bottom bullet point on this screen. The idea that he doesn't really love this person, but perhaps he's infatuated or blinded by some sort of ideal or idea of love, an idea of this person. So Paris is the city of love, but this is a sort of notional ideal, and the reality can never live up to that. So you have the sort of dilapidated hotel room as opposed to the kind of postcard idea of the Eiffel Tower and the cathedrals and so on. And and maybe that's true of love as well, that people have this grand idea of it. The poem can be read as saying, and yet the reality can't live up to that, and that's where you get this idea of suffering and heartache in love. There again, a sort of more romantic view in the third bullet point there, which is a suggestion from a couple of different people that actually the word Paris can be substituted for the word love, especially in the last stanza of the poem. You can look at how that would work. I'm in love with the slightest thing you do. I'm in love with your eyes, your mouth. I'm in love with you. So you get that idea then as Paris standing in for love, and suddenly then this poem becomes, at least at the end, a declaration of love for the other person, which leads us on to people's readings of love in the poem. And there's some of them on the screen, which I won't read all of them now, just partly because of time, and you can always pause the film and read these yourself. But a range of different ideas of what the poem's saying about love. And what I liked about these is actually they're all thoughtful and more sophisticated perhaps than some of the basic things you could say. The poem shows that there is pain in love, or the poem talks about love in the sense of being attracted to another person, which are things you could say in an exam question in this poem, but some of your points are much more subtle than that. And you can perhaps, as we go through the poem now, think about these ideas of love on the screen and think, well, which ones to you are the most fitting? So we'll do that now. I'm going to go through the poem and talk about some of the points that students in the class made, and also some of the questions that people asked about various bits of the poem, and try and answer some of those questions as well. So we'll start at the beginning of the poem. And don't talk to me of love, I've had an earful. So this idea that the speaker in the poem has been hurt before, and he doesn't want to be reminded of the pain that he's been through in his experience of love. It makes him upset. I get tearful when I've downed a drink or two. And quite a lot of people then either commented or questioned the lines in the remaining part of that stanza. Someone asked, what does talking wounded suggest? Another, how is he a hostage? And a third person asked, why has marooned been misspelt here? So fortunately enough, all of the answers to these questions are contained in students' comments, really. So I'll go through some of those now. In terms of the talking wounded, a couple of people picked this out as a line that they enjoyed because of the play on words on walking wounded. So the pun included there to make readers laugh, to make this sound funny, and also an idea that this is then part of a military semantic field. So you've got wounded, hostage, etc. And one person picking up on the idea that this is like the pain caused by love, or the lasting damage of heartbreak. In terms of how is he a hostage, students speculated about, is this person stuck in the past? They can't escape from their unhappy memories, or they're stuck in their own mind. They're trying to escape from those thoughts that they want to kind of get rid of, and yet they keep going round and round and talking about them. Another person said, is the person trapped in a relationship which they're unhappy in? So there's various interpretations of that. In terms of marooned, why is the word misspelt? But well, you've got the humour of a kind of comic, jokey misspelling, perhaps following on from talking wounded. You've got the idea of the misspelling to manipulate the rhyme and make the two lines rhyme together. And there was another interesting suggestion that one of you got in touch and said about, which I'd not really thought of before, but this idea in line 2, it talks about the person's downed a drink or two. So perhaps they're at this point mispronouncing their words, and and that's because they're drunk, and that's why we get this this wrong version of marooned. And that picks up on the idea of this as a monologue, and also this idea that if the poets or if the speaker in the poem is trying to make us laugh, we're also being invited to consider a story in which they're trying to make a romantic partner laugh as well. And we'll pick up on that perhaps a little bit later on. So you get "But I'm in Paris with you," and then again at the end of the following stanza, when the speaker has talked in more detail about being bamboozled and resentful and so on. All stuff that you could talk about in terms of answering the question about how this poem presents excuse me, how this poem presents love. You get again that repetition of "I'm in Paris with you." So one student said the repetition of this line through the poem is romantic and gives a sense of hope despite some of the more negative content of the poem. So moving on to the central part of the poem. One student said they liked the line here, "Sod off to sodding Notre Dame," because of the colloquial language being used there, which gives us a sense of this person's personality, and also the idea that mentioning a famous landmark makes the poem relatable, and maybe the use of Paris as a whole throughout the poem, which is a place where many people have been and pretty much everyone will have seen pictures of on TV or books or the internet, is designed to make the whole poem relatable, as well as those ideas connected to Paris, which we spoke about before. So another person suggested that perhaps the character, the speaker in the poem, is quite shy because, first of all, they want to stay indoors rather than go out to these crowded touristy places, but also they're asking for permission. This idea of, do you mind if we do not go to the Louvre? So this idea of perhaps lacking in confidence may be related to the experiences mentioned earlier on, or just an underlying shyness. Another idea that one or two of you talked about with this stanza is the idea of being with a person, and hopefully being with the right person is more important than where you are. So actually spending time and getting to know this person in the hotel room is preferable to going to a place that is sort of romantic in a cliched sort of way. So perhaps you can see one interpretation of love in the poem here is that actually love is really about being with a certain person and getting to know them, learning about them, rather than being in a sort of romantic and beautiful place. That's just a cliche version of love, and true love is something different. Okay, what I'm going to do is pause and take a slight break there, and then we'll pick up on some of the elements of the second half of the poem in part 2.